Ever pondered over the health of the infrastructure along the US East Coast? Well, if you haven't, it's high time you did. Our infrastructure, the backbone of our economy and the lifeline of our quality of life, is in a precarious situation. From Maine to Florida, roads, bridges and tunnels, the veins and arteries of our society, are showing signs of age, wear and tear. However, aging structures aren't the only concern. The rising sea levels, an unwelcome gift from climate change, are threatening to submerge and erode them. And to add to the woes, there's a gaping hole where the funds for improvement should be. Billions of dollars in repairs and upgrades are needed, but the money is simply not there. So you see, the current state of the East Coast's infrastructure is more than just a problem. It's a ticking time bomb, a crisis waiting to happen. Numbers can paint a vivid picture, and the ones related to our infrastructure are not pretty. Let's dive into the cold, hard facts. The infrastructure on the East Coast is aging, and it's aging fast. The average age of bridges and roads in the region is a staggering 50 years. That's half a century of wear and tear, half a century of exposure to the elements, which are becoming increasingly hostile due to climate change. And when we look at the cost of the needed repairs, the figures are just as daunting. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, we're looking at a whopping $2 trillion over the next 25 years to bring our infrastructure up to par. That's a hefty price tag, but the cost of ignoring the problem is even more alarming. If we continue to turn a blind eye to our crumbling infrastructure, we risk severe economic repercussions. The cumulative impact could result in almost $4 trillion in GDP loss by 2040, and the loss of 2.5 million jobs. These are not just numbers, they represent our livelihoods, our communities, our future. Moreover, we cannot ignore the human toll. Every year, there are over 35,000 fatalities associated with road accidents in the United States, a figure significantly influenced by the state of our infrastructure. It's not just about dollars and cents, it's about lives. These figures aren't meant to scare you, but to underscore the urgency of the situation. We can't afford to delay action. The numbers are a stark reminder that our infrastructure isn't just bricks, asphalt and steel. It's the backbone of our economy, the lifeline of our communities. We are at a critical juncture, the numbers are clear, the need is pressing, and the time to act is now. We must address this issue head-on with the seriousness and commitment it deserves. The numbers don't lie, our infrastructure is in dire need of attention. Scene script. Climate change isn't just about warmer summers, it's accelerating the deterioration of our infrastructure. As the Earth's temperature rises, we're seeing more than just longer, hotter summers. The East Coast of the United States is feeling the brunt of these changes with critical infrastructure sinking into the rising sea levels. But how does this happen, you ask? Well, buckle up because we're about to take a deep dive into the world of climate science. You see, as the polar ice caps melt, sea levels rise. This isn't just a problem for polar bears and penguins, it's a problem for us too. Especially those of us living on the East Coast. Our cities, our homes, our roads, our airports, our power plants, they're all at risk. Consider this. The sea level along the East Coast has risen by about a foot over the last century. Now that might not seem like much, but even a small rise in sea level can have a big impact. For instance, during high tide or a storm, that extra foot of water can lead to flooding, causing significant damage to infrastructure. And then, there's the increase in storm activity. Warmer oceans fuel more powerful storms. We've seen this play out in real time, with hurricanes becoming more frequent and more destructive. These storms are battering our coastlines, eroding our beaches, and damaging our infrastructure. Now let's talk numbers. A study conducted by the Union of Concerned Scientists found that by the end of this century, nearly 2/3 of the East Coast's infrastructure could be at risk from sea level rise and storm surge. That includes over 3,000 miles of roadways and more than 100 airports. So, you see, climate change isn't just making our summers hotter, it's threatening our homes, our livelihoods, and our very way of life. It's causing our infrastructure, the very backbone of our society, to sink into the sea. Climate change is not just an environmental issue, it's an infrastructure issue too. Scene script. Change begins with you and I. It starts with awareness and ends with action. Critical infrastructure along the East Coast is sinking, and the time to act is now. We've seen the numbers, we've felt the impacts, and now we must confront the reality that if we don't act swiftly, the consequences could be dire. So how can you contribute to this cause? There are several ways you can make a difference. Firstly, let's talk about legislation. Supporting infrastructure funding is crucial. This funding is the backbone of any large-scale structural improvement. Reach out to your local representatives, state senators, and congresspeople. Let them know that you're concerned about the state of our infrastructure and urge them to prioritize funding for its restoration and modernization. Secondly, get involved in your local community. Participate in initiatives that aim to tackle this issue. Whether it's a neighborhood cleanup, a tree planting event, or a public meeting about city planning, your participation matters. These initiatives not only help to address immediate concerns, but also foster a community spirit that is vital in tackling bigger challenges. Finally, spread the word. Awareness is the first step towards action. Talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues about the state of our East Coast infrastructure. Use social media to share information and mobilize others. Remember, change begins with a conversation. We may not all be scientists or policymakers, but we all have a role to play in this fight. We can lobby for change, we can support our local communities, and we can enlighten those around us about the urgency of the situation. Remember, the state of our infrastructure affects us all. From the roads we drive on, to the water we drink, to the electricity that powers our homes. It's all interconnected, and it's all at risk. The future of our East Coast infrastructure is in our hands. Act now before it's too late.